in your experience, having women in leadership positions, women who have strong foresight and strong dreams and personalities and a kind of a go-getter attitude, how does that then change and perhaps lay the groundwork for other women to get involved, or even for future generations?
Thank you, and thank you, Wow, for inviting me. And I hope you can all hear me. The Fairs Festival started, I just give you just a 3 or 4 sentences. He died in 1984, and so we started with having a festival, but we called it Fairs Aman Mela, which means Fairs Festival of Peace. The years, if you see them, were 19 martial law, and it was very difficult to get even 7 or 10 people together. And so the Fairs Foundation was formed, and then they started this festival in the open air theater, in which thousands of people came to protest against what was the political situation at the time. Slowly, after 1988-89, when democracy returned to Pakistan, then we sort of kind of went into the background, and then the Fairs Festival, as we call it, began in this very place in 2011, which was really to commemorate his centennial. Now, how did it begin? It really began, as I say, with the fact that we wanted to remember him and remember his message and messages of peace. But now we've just completed our 8th festival, and this was earlier on in February. And the idea is now to expand it into go beyond fairs, but what fairs stood for, which was peace, which was tolerance, which was human rights, which was journalistic independence and expression of freedom of expression, and so on and so forth. So talking about women being leaders and being I don't like to say that, because I'm sure the Fairs Foundation board is going to get angry, but I do happen to be the one who runs it, or is the chief organizer, and I like to call myself the bully, because I am the bully behind the scenes. And so, but of course, it's not just me, it's a whole big advisory board, and we sit together and we discuss it, and so on and so forth and so on. But of course, there has to be a leadership person, if you want to call it, or a leadership kind of a situation in which it happens. I, because of my experience in Pakistan television, where I worked for 40 years, and then, of course, I did become the management position. I think that is what made it easier, if you want to call it, for me to run this huge festival, which is really very, very big. But I think women in leadership roles is definitely, and I heard this being discussed in a previous session as well, it's extremely important to now step into policymaking positions and being leaders, because that makes you somehow take a completely different look, or a different attitude, or a different, shall we say, mindset of what you're trying to say. And as Amina just said, bringing women authors in, or something, so there is definitely an element in the Fairs Festival, very clear element of doing 2 or 3 sessions on gender, which could be women authors, which could be women in cinema, which could be women in theater, and there are some sitting right here who were in the festival themselves. So, and I think possibly, I don't like to say this very obviously, but I'm hoping that perhaps by seeing women in the leadership positions, as you see 3 of them here, there is definitely a trickle-down effect, and definitely people who are watching or participating or just being present feel that if they can do it, so can I. And of course, we are there always to guide and advise, and I don't like to use the word role models, but we certainly are there at the back to support. So yes, I think having a woman somewhere in the obvious position where she can be seen, she can be heard, and she can also be reckoned with, in a manner of speaking, And there are times, let me tell you, Zara, that they have, I don't know about Amina, but I think I know about Qudsiya because we do things more in public spaces. So there have been times when we have faced the local management, and they've been, I would say to me, they've been relatively gentler because we were women. I, of course, am, unfortunately, people who know me here know that I'm pretty ferocious, but I not say the same for Qudsiya. But you know, they kind of take a back seat. Madam, madam. So then madam has to make her impression. So I think it certainly requires a certain amount of, how should I say, commitment, focus, objective focus, knowing that you have to get this done, and knowing that you know how to do it. The person in front of you is actually just using the excuse of bureaucracy or of rules or of, but madam, so then madam has to come up with certain elements in this. And that helps. Ji madam, ji madam. That's the way I operate.
And now for all of you, and whoever wants to take this question on can do so. I think, you've been so honest with your stories, with your experiences, with the challenges you faced, with why you decided to take on these very large, long-term projects and goals. There's still a lot to be done, obviously, in this arena, and I was wondering if you could chat to the audience, as well as all of us, about what each of us can do in our own communities for ourselves to make sure that lasting change comes about for women in all spaces, not just festivals, not just public spaces, but everywhere. Whether there's some learning that you have learned over your careers, over your journeys, and perhaps even from the festivals that you have put together, whether there's any book that you read, or a talk that you heard, or a film that you saw that has guided your journey in some way. Who'd like to go first?
Since I think for us, again, our ambition is very simple. We want the Lahore Biennale to be one of 10 million things that are happening in the city. And plurality is very important. We think inclusion, we think, community, those kind of things are very important. We would like to see more of that. And if by working in the public space, we're able to engage and other people are able to engage and create that plural space, I think that's where the success lies.
I think the thing that I always go back to, both from personal experience and from what I've seen with the festival, is reading and literacy. I think actually in terms of creating long-term change, whether it's within our local communities or actually the world over, the key thing is education. And, the reason why I set up the festival is that I work on the basis that literacy is the absolute foundation stone of any part of education. I know that as, we have this in the UK, this big focus on science, and as Asians, we always have a big focus on maths and science, but actually without literacy, every part of the curriculum is closed to you, and you cannot get any further. So for me, that is the big thing that we can actually do to create change.
I think we say that festivals stimulate curiosity and make you want to understand something you didn't know before. So I think one of the things we can all do all the time is check our own biases and prejudices and remain very curious. And that also stops you getting old. And I don't just mean old in terms of your age, but people become a barrier to progress just because they stop learning and they stop being curious. So I think that's very, very important. And obviously, although WOW is called Women of the World, its byline is if you're a woman or you know a woman, it's for you. Now that obviously means everybody. But I feel very strongly that the men who are in the audience, and thank you, you need to be the ones who go and speak about why gender equity would mean so much for your life, what it means for you personally, because the conversations around equality, and in this festival it happens to be about women, but it could be about race, it could be about class, it could be about disability, it could be LGBT plus, it could be lots of things. And the world that we live in is made by all of us. So in a way, a festival brings us together to celebrate and inquire. It's really important that the legacy of the festival is that you go away with more courage and apply it in your domestic and social contexts. That's really got to be the legacy.
I think I'd just like to make a comment here, looking back and then looking today. Over the last 30, 40 years, when I look at what festivals were then and what festivals are now, and the laughter, the dance, the complete freedom of enjoyment that never was actually a part of our lives when I was growing up, simply because of different situations outside. And then because I was a part of the media, I still am in a manner of speaking, and for the first time, Pakistan Television is doing a whole day, small segments of transmission of regarding women on March the 8th, which is a huge step forward. So when you look at all of this, and there was a time when even, as we all know, some of us anyway, that we were not allowed to sit with our head uncovered. We had to have our head covered whether we were sleeping, eating, drinking, I mean, you know, stuff like that. I won't go into the background. So moving from that to now, and looking at how women, as you see, this powerhouse, as you called us, and so on and so forth, we have moved forward. It's still a long battle ahead, but I think we've definitely moved forward in putting women in places where they were not before, in putting women in policy-making decisions, and in also now in celebrating ourselves together and enjoying the fact that we are women and we are the world.
Actually, going forward, I mean, what are our goals? I feel that, I have several goals. For example, I think the most important is innovation. I feel that, having organized at least 25 festivals, apart from that, hundreds of festivals have been held in Pakistan. And people are beginning to say that they are becoming a bit repetitive, the same kind of format and structure, sometimes the same topics, same speakers are being repeated. So going forward, I am really very actively looking for innovation in the form of actually changing the format, introducing new topics, reinforcing others. For example, absolutely, I think we need to have many more topics that involve women. And also, I think we need to introduce more artists, cultural activities, comedy. Comedy is always a hit. And we have so many stand-up comedians in Pakistan. But instead of getting the same popular ones, one has to discover new people. So the idea is to get emerging talent, lots of young, new writers, artists, singers, dancers, comedians, and involve the youth more. I'm also thinking of, actively thinking of a succession plan. And I'm trying to really get, and I find there are so many young people. If I can quickly tell you a story, we had a young student who had come as a volunteer to our festival. And his job was to accompany Zehra Nigah. And just to sort of take her to different sessions, hold her bag, hold her hand, guide her, get her a cup of tea. That was his job for 2 days. And he was saying at the end of 2 days, I fell in love with Urdu. And you know, in his Cambridge exam, he got the highest marks. He did brilliantly in Urdu. He made that his subject. And now he is into organizing. He is my right-hand man in organizing literature festivals, a young man. And I think that's, for me, that is the future.
Absolutely, Amina. And you know what's really inspiring? That's an overused word, but I think in this case it's very relevant. What's really inspiring and special about all of you is that you are constantly setting yourself new goals, new ceilings to break, things to do, and that activation is so important. With that in mind, shall we take questions from the audience? I think we have time for one and possibly two questions if we're very quick. And I'd appreciate if they're questions, please, not comments. There's one in the front row.
Hi. So I would like to say that I agree with Jude on the part where she said someone should be curious and not let that curiosity die. I just want to ask, like, how do we inculcate that with everyone around us? Like, how should people become more curious? And how can, for example, if I think I am curious, how can I help others be more curious? Where do we, connect that, those dots?
It's a vast question. So I would answer it in three ways. First of all, any opportunity that you get to put your voice behind education for very young kids is important, because we often start our thinking about curiosity, with young people, but actually, in a way, the time to really cultivate curiosity is at 2 and 3 and 4. So I don't know what your policies are in Pakistan about early years education, but it's really, really critical. And in 100 years' time, we'll look back and realize that we constantly miss the trick of not helping toddlers build curiosity. And then the second thing is, I think you can make yourself somebody that people are curious about by having the courage to say, I haven't a fully formed idea, I'm not completely certain, I don't absolutely know, but here's some thoughts, so that you can help people open up their curiosity by not being certain. Do you know what I mean? I think certainty closes people down. Whereas the thing about all of us, I think, doing festivals is that we're looking at people kind of trying to bud and open up something that is half formed. Well, we're all half formed, aren't we? And so I think that vulnerability in conversation, to be curious and ask questions, and also say we don't fully know, but we'd love to. It's a style, I think, of engagement one-on-one, but I think that's also a style that the festivals have, which is, fun. And the third thing I would say is get rid of status. Status kills curiosity. When you feel like you have to be important, then you're frightened to take risks. And, we're not more important than each other.
Jude, thank you for that. And thank you so much, ladies, for that wonderful conversation, for sharing so much about your journeys, your vulnerabilities, your challenges, and how you overcame them, and what your vision is. And thank you to all of you for being the most wonderful audience and listening to these powerhouses and inspirations. Thank you very much. And to WOW for hosting us.
इंटरनेट का इस्तेमाल हर किसी को बेफिक्री से करना चाहिए। टेक्नोलॉजी के बहुत से फायदे हैं, जैसे नई इंफॉर्मेशन, राब्ते और रोजगार के मौके। लेकिन कुछ लोग डिजिटल दुनिया में भी दूसरों को तशद्दुद, तकलीफ और बदनामी का शिकार बनाते हैं। किसी की तस्वीर और वीडियोस उनकी इजाजत के बगैर शेयर करना और उनसे झूठी चीजें बनाकर सच के तौर पर पेश करना, इसको डीप फेक कहते हैं। इसके साथ साथ किसी की जाती मालूमात जैसे कि पता या फोन नंबर इंटरनेट पर आम करना, जिसे डॉक्सिंग कहते हैं। ये सब जुल्म भी है और जुर्म भी। इसका शिकार कोई भी हो, बच्चे या बड़े, जहनी दबाव, पशेमानी और तन्हाई का शिकार हो जाते हैं। बात ना कर पाने की वजह से या बदनामी के खौफ से कई लोग खुदकुशी की हद तक जा पहुंचते हैं। कई लोग ऐसे मुजरिमों के हाथों ब्लैकमेल होकर पैसा गंवाते हैं। इंटरनेट का महफूज इस्तेमाल हम सब का हक है, मगर इस सब का हल क्या है? नफरत अंगेज कमेंट्स करने वालों को रिपोर्ट करें। ध्यान करें कि किसी की तस्वीर या वीडियोस उनकी इजाजत के बगैर ना शेयर करें, ना शेयर होने दें। अगर कोई आपको आपकी जाती तस्वीर या वीडियोस की वजह से ब्लैकमेल करे तो उसको फौरन FIA को रिपोर्ट करें। ऐसी वीडियोस और पोस्ट पर यकीन ना करें, क्योंकि डीप फेक्स आपके भी बन सकते हैं।
ओहो, अकेले अकेले कहाँ? थोड़ी हमें भी लिफ्ट करा दो।
यार, ये आप लोग क्या कर रहे हो? अच्छे खासे पढ़े लिखे लगते हो। अकेली लड़कियों को देखकर जुमले कसना, सीटी बजाना, ऐसी हरकतें आपको जेब नहीं देती हैं। खवातीन को घर से बाहर महफूज माहौल फराहम करना हमारा फर्ज है।
बदलो अपनी सोच को, सबके लिए आवाज दो। बस्ती बस्ती नगरी नगरी एक हो के आवाज दो।
भाई मैं जा रही हूँ, दरवाजा लॉक कर लीजिएगा।
यार वैसे मैंने देखा है कि तुम्हारी बहन रोजाना मोहल्ले के बस स्टॉप पे खड़ी होती है। मोहल्ले की लड़कियां इतना बाहर निकले अच्छा थोड़ी लगता है। बेहतर होगा कि अपनी बहन को समझा या उसे रोक दे।
मैं क्यों रोकूं उसे? उससे ये इख्तियार हासिल है कि ये फैसला वो खुद करे।
देख भाई, हमें सोच बदलने की जरूरत है, लड़कियों को रोकने की नहीं। बल्ब ऑन कर। लो भाई, आ गई रोशनी।
बदलो अपनी सोच को, सबके लिए आवाज दो। बस्ती बस्ती नगरी नगरी एक हो के आवाज दो।
ला भाई, पाना लिया।
उस्ताद जी।
हाँ,
सुना है कल रात को मोहल्ले में क्या हुआ?
तुम्हें पता है मैं इन बातों में नहीं पड़ता। खैर क्या हुआ? कोई खास बात हुई?
अरे गजब हो गया उस्ताद जी, गजब हो गया। इजाज के गुस्से ने तो हद कर दी। बीवी पे हाथ उठा दिया उसने। बीवी को रोब में रखने का तो यही एक तरीका है। मैंने भी अपनी बीवी को समझा दिया है। सीख जाओ बेगम, वरना मैं भी बहुत बुरी तरह पेश आऊंगा।
सठिया गए हो क्या? बीवी पर हाथ उठाना बहादुरी नहीं, बुज़दिली है। और पुरएतमाद मर्द हाथों से नहीं बोलते। बीवी तो हमसफर होती है यार। मैंने तो आज तक अपनी बीवी पे हाथ नहीं उठाया और ना कभी उठाऊंगा। कभी सोचा है इससे बच्चों पे क्या असर पड़ेगा? मेरी बात पे गौर करना। जाओ सेल्फ मारो।
बदलो अपनी सोच को, सबके लिए आवाज दो। बस्ती बस्ती नगरी नगरी एक हो के आवाज दो।
ओहो, अकेले अकेले कहाँ? थोड़ी हमें भी लिफ्ट करा दो।
यार, ये आप लोग क्या कर रहे हो? अच्छे खासे पढ़े लिखे लगते हो। अकेली लड़कियों को देखकर जुमले कसना, सीटी बजाना, ऐसी हरकतें आपको जेब नहीं देती हैं। खवातीन को घर से बाहर महफूज माहौल फराहम करना हमारा फर्ज है।
बदलो अपनी सोच को, सबके लिए आवाज दो। बस्ती बस्ती नगरी नगरी एक हो के आवाज दो।
भाई मैं जा रही हूँ, दरवाजा लॉक कर लीजिएगा।
यार वैसे मैंने देखा है कि तुम्हारी बहन रोजाना मोहल्ले के बस स्टॉप पे खड़ी होती है। मोहल्ले की लड़कियां इतना बाहर निकले अच्छा थोड़ी लगता है। बेहतर होगा कि अपनी बहन को समझा या उसे रोक दे।
मैं क्यों रोकूं उसे?
उससे ये इख्तियार हासिल है कि ये फैसला वो खुद करे।
देख भाई, हमें सोच बदलने की जरूरत है, लड़कियों को रोकने की नहीं। बलबोन कर। लो भाई, आ गई रोशनी।
बदलो अपनी सोच को, सबके लिए आवाज दो। बस्ती बस्ती नगरी नगरी एक हो के आवाज दो।
ला भाई, पाना लिया।
उस्ताद जी,
हाँ
सुना है कल रात को मोहल्ले में क्या हुआ?
तुम्हें पता है मैं इन बातों में नहीं पड़ता। खैर क्या हुआ? कोई खास बात हुई?
अरे गजब हो गया उस्ताद जी, गजब हो गया। इजाज के गुस्से ने तो हद कर दी। बीवी पे हाथ उठा दिया उसने। बीवी को रोब में रखने का तो यही एक तरीका है। मैंने भी अपनी बीवी को समझा दिया है। सीख जाओ बेगम, वरना मैं भी बहुत बुरी तरह पेश आऊंगा।
सठिया गए हो क्या? बीवी पर हाथ उठाना बहादुरी नहीं, बुज़दिली है। और पुरएतमाद मर्द हाथों से नहीं बोलते। बीवी तो हमसफर होती है यार। मैंने तो आज तक अपनी बीवी पे हाथ नहीं उठाया और ना कभी उठाऊंगा। कभी सोचा इससे बच्चों पे क्या असर पड़ेगा? मेरी बात पे गौर करना। जाओ जरा सेल्फ मारो।
बदलो अपनी सोच को, सबके लिए आवाज दो। बस्ती बस्ती नगरी नगरी एक हो के आवाज दो।
ओहो, अकेले अकेले कहाँ? थोड़ी हमें भी लिफ्ट करा दो।
यार, ये आप लोग क्या कर रहे हो? अच्छे खासे पढ़े लिखे लगते हो। अकेली लड़कियों को देखकर जुमले कसना, सीटी बजाना, ऐसी हरकतें आपको जेब नहीं देती हैं। खवातीन को घर से बाहर महफूज माहौल फराहम करना हमारा फर्ज है।
बदलो अपनी सोच को, सबके लिए आवाज दो। बस्ती बस्ती नगरी नगरी एक हो के आवाज दो।
भाई मैं जा रही हूँ, दरवाजा लॉक कर लीजिएगा।
यार वैसे मैंने देखा है कि तुम्हारी बहन रोजाना मोहल्ले के बस स्टॉप पे खड़ी होती है। मोहल्ले की लड़कियां इतना बाहर निकले अच्छा थोड़ी लगता है। बेहतर होगा कि अपनी बहन को समझा या उसे रोक दे।
मैं क्यों रोकूं उसे?
उससे ये इख्तियार हासिल है कि ये फैसला वो खुद करे।
देख भाई, हमें सोच बदलने की जरूरत है, लड़कियों को रोकने की नहीं। बलबोन कर। लो भाई, आ गई रोशनी।
बदलो अपनी सोच को, सबके लिए आवाज दो। बस्ती बस्ती नगरी नगरी, एक हो के आवाज दो।
ला भाई पाना लिया।
उस्ताद जी,
हाँ
सुना है कल रात को मोहल्ले में क्या हुआ?
तुम्हें पता है मैं इन बातों में नहीं पड़ता। खैर क्या हुआ, कोई खास बात हुई?
अरे गजब हो गया उस्ताद जी, गजब हो गया। इजाज के गुस्से ने तो हद कर दी। बीवी पे हाथ उठा दिया उसने। बीवी को रोब में रखने का तो यही एक तरीका है। मैंने भी अपनी बीवी को समझा दिया है। सीख जाओ बेगम, वरना मैं भी बहुत बुरी तरह पेश आऊंगा।
सठिया गए हो क्या? बीवी पर हाथ उठाना बहादुरी नहीं, बुज़दिली है। मैंने तो आज तक अपनी बीवी पे हाथ नहीं उठाया और ना कभी उठाऊंगा। कभी सोचा है इससे बच्चों पे क्या असर पड़ेगा? मेरी बात पे गौर करना। जाओ जरा सेल्फ मारो।
बदलो अपनी सोच को, सबके लिए आवाज दो। बस्ती बस्ती नगरी नगरी, एक हो के आवाज दो।
ओहो, अकेले अकेले कहाँ? थोड़ी हमें भी लिफ्ट करा दो।
यार ये आप लोग क्या कर रहे हो? अच्छे खासे पढ़े लिखे लगते हो। अकेली लड़कियों को देखकर जुमले कसना, सीटी बजाना, ऐसी हरकतें आपको जेब नहीं देती हैं। खवातीन को घर से बाहर महफूज माहौल फराहम करना हमारा फर्ज है।
बदलो अपनी सोच को, सबके लिए आवाज दो। बस्ती बस्ती नगरी नगरी, एक हो के आवाज दो।
भाई मैं जा रही हूँ, दरवाजा लॉक कर लीजिएगा।
यार वैसे मैंने देखा है कि तुम्हारी बहन रोजाना मोहल्ले के बस स्टॉप पे खड़ी होती है। मोहल्ले की लड़कियां इतना बाहर निकले अच्छा थोड़ी लगता है। बेहतर होगा कि अपनी बहन को समझा या उसे रोक दे।
मैं क्यों रोकूं उसे? उससे ये इख्तियार हासिल है कि ये फैसला वो खुद करे। देख भाई, हमें सोच बदलने की जरूरत है, लड़कियों को रोकने की नहीं। बल्ब ऑन कर। लो भाई, आ गई रोशनी।
बदलो अपनी सोच को, सबके लिए आवाज दो। बस्ती बस्ती नगरी नगरी, एक हो के आवाज दो।
ला भाई पाना लिया।
उस्ताद जी,
हाँ
सुना है कल रात को मोहल्ले में क्या हुआ?
तुम्हें पता है मैं इन बातों में नहीं पड़ता। खैर क्या हुआ, कोई खास बात हुई?
अरे गजब हो गया उस्ताद जी, गजब हो गया। इजाज के गुस्से ने तो हद कर दी। बीवी पे हाथ उठा दिया उसने। बीवी को रोब में रखने का तो यही एक तरीका है। मैंने भी अपनी बीवी को समझा दिया है। सीख जाओ बेगम, वरना मैं भी बहुत बुरी तरह पेश आऊंगा।
सठिया गए हो क्या?
कैपिटल सिटी है बलूचिस्तान का, और हमारे यहाँ जो एक सेटअप होता है, जिस तरह हम कहते हैं ना, हम थोड़ा सा मार्जिनलाइज की जो हम बात करते हैं, तो कोयटा का नाम सुनते ही सबसे पहले सबको ये होता है कि मतलब स्पेशली जब हम, मुझे थोड़ा सा दर्द होता है इस बात पे कि जब कभी लाहौर में या कराची में किसी पूछे कोयटा का है तो कहेंगे पेशावर की तरफ है कि पता नहीं किस तरफ है। तो ये एक थोड़ी सी ना प्रॉब्लम रहती है। कोयटा बलूचिस्तान में है और मैं कोयटा से हूँ। कोयटा में मेरी एक ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है आइकन के नेम से, और उसमें हम काफ़ी सारी चीज़ों पे काम करते हैं, जिसमें चाइल्ड प्रोटेक्शन भी आता है। हम वुमेन एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप पर काम कर रहे हैं, हम यूथ एम्बेसडर्स पर काम करते हैं, हम यंग लीडर्स पे काम कर रहे हैं। इसके अलावा बहुत सारी ऐसी इंगेजमेंट्स हैं जिनके थ्रू हमने कोयटा को बाकी पाकिस्तान से कनेक्टेड रखा है थ्रू आवर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन। महनाज, थोड़ा सा आप अपने बारे में बताएंगी?
थैंक यू। अच्छा,